Recently, I've had some questions from sellers about what to expect at closing. Now, usually this is a question that I get more often from buyers, but clearly a lot of sellers have questions about the process too. So today, I'm going to talk about the seller's side of the closing process and what they can expect at closing. So if you're curious or maybe even a little nervous about what happens at closing, stick around and I'll fill you in on all the details. So one question I get asked a lot by sellers is about who signs the deed. A lot of times only one spouse is on the title, so they figure that only that person actually has to sign. But Florida is a homestead state, which means that with homesteaded property, both parties have a marital interest in the property, and so both spouses are going to have to sign in order to sell it, regardless of whether or not they're actually on the deed. And unless the seller has some sort of marital release signed by the spouse or other documentation showing that their spouse has released their interest in the home, both of them are going to have to warm up those pens. And everybody who signs will need 2 forms of ID, so make sure that you have yours with you when you come to the closing. Closing schedules are usually pretty tight, so having to reschedule because you didn't bring ID can really make things difficult. And yes, I've had it happen more than once. Number 2, all liens for the property have to be paid in full. The closing agent is going to have to pay off all liens against the property. And when I say that liens against the property have to be paid in full before it can be sold, most people automatically think about the mortgage. I mean, everybody knows that if there's a mortgage against the property, it's got to be paid before you can sell it, right? But there are other kinds of liens that have to be paid off prior to sale. Things like tax liens, contractor liens, or judgments. If you've taken out an equity line of credit at any point, that's going to have to be properly closed out too. This has all got to be done before closing or at the closing table. Not that you really need to worry about it, because the closing agent at the title company will perform a title search early on in the closing process in order to see if there are any additional liens, and they're going to ask for your Social Security number along with any account numbers so that they can get the payoffs and everything. You just need to be aware that it's got to be done before you can transfer the property to a buyer. Now, early in my career as an agent, I had a client who wound up having to bring money to the table in order to sell, because he thought that the home equity loan that he had taken out would transfer to his new house. And he wasn't making enough money from the sale to pay it off, so he had to take money out of his retirement savings. When we listed the property, I'd asked about outstanding loans, but since he thought it would follow him to the new home, he didn't think to mention it. And he'd already closed on his new house, so he was in a pickle. So just be aware that all liens have to be paid off in full before closing. Number 3 is the IRS. You're going to want to get professional tax advice because the closing agent is going to report the sale to the IRS. They're going to give you a 1099-S form at the time the deed is signed at closing and ask for a forwarding address. Then at the end of the year, that Form 1099 will be sent to the IRS to show the full sales price of the property. Again, in most cases, that's not going to be an issue. Thanks to capital gains exemptions on principal residences, most sellers probably won't owe anything to the IRS from the proceeds of selling their home. But it is not always the case. Depending on your particular circumstances, you might end up owing taxes on the proceeds from the sale of your home, so it's going to be in your best interest to consult with your tax guy to find out what your particular tax liabilities and obligations are. You don't want any nasty surprises come tax time. Number 4, you don't have to close at the same time as the buyers, and actually, you don't even have to be there in person. When most people think about the closing, they picture everybody packed together around a table in a big room, all signing everything at the same time. And depending on where you're physically located at closing time, and let's be honest, how well you got along with the buyers, that can be a cause for more than a little anxiety and stress. And honestly, if the buyers and sellers didn't get along well during the process, it's pretty stressful for us agents too. But the good news is most people today prefer to sign separately. It's actually easier on the title company in most cases, and it makes scheduling easier on everybody, particularly sellers. Typically, the seller's closing package is really short, only a few pages, while the buyer's package, well, if they're getting a loan, let's just say they have severe writer's cramp in their future. Their package is usually a stack about yay high, which makes their part of the closing really long. And a lot of buyers aren't really comfortable with the sellers being present while all their finances are being discussed anyway. So separate closings are really a win for everybody. And I'm all about the win, aren't you? Alternatively, as a seller, you can almost always sign your part by having a closing package sent out by overnight mail or by signing electronically if your state allows it. Now for the fun part, getting paid. This is the part that is near and dear to every seller's heart, mine included. Make sure you tell your closing agent how you want to get your proceeds. They can give you an actual physical check, or they can wire it directly to your bank account, whatever works for you. But be aware that you don't necessarily get paid right away when you sign. You get paid after the title company receives all the funds and everyone on both sides has signed everything. So if your buyer's financing, your proceeds are not going to be dispersed until the buyer's lender has approved all the paperwork. Usually this is going to happen the same day, especially if the buyer closed early in the day. But if they close late in the day, you might not get paid until the next business day. Of course, if you have a cash buyer, then it's not going to be an issue, and your proceeds will be dispersed right away, provided that all liens against your property have been satisfied. And the way that works is that once everything's been signed and funded, the closing agent is going to issue checks first to everyone who's owed, like your mortgage company, and then they'll disperse what's left to you as the seller. And there you have it, a very basic and broad overview of what you, as the seller, can expect at closing. Now, admittedly, every situation is different, so this is a pretty basic overview of the process. But most closings happen pretty much along the same lines. And if you like this video, check out my video on getting your home ready to sell. And as always, remember to like and subscribe, because I do this every week, and you don't want to miss anything.